Hi everyone, this is Grandmaster Mac Molnar, and bringing the next video here for Grandmaster Mac. In today's video, we're going to see a game between someone named Glucksberg, who's not a well-known player. I really don't know much about him. He must have been some European player. He played a good game, but he was facing Najdorf today, who's a really well-known Grandmaster, and he was a world-class player. So at various points, he was competing at the highest levels, trying to become a challenger to the World Championship. And he left a really lasting impression on chess through this opening. And this is known as the Najdorf Sicilian. And it's known to be just a really, really high quality opening. It's one of the only defenses which is considered just like absolutely kind of not necessarily, well, it's you could call it flawless, I guess. Maybe that's too glowing of a statement, but it's considered like the highest, like in the highest tier of openings against e4, and it goes like this. And yeah, it's a great Sicilian. I actually play this all the time. Black tries to set up this move e5, and then can also prepare counterplay with moves like b5 later, put the bishop here, aim it at the center. So it's definitely a nice active defense for Black. You can get a good game, and you don't really risk anything by doing it. It's sound, but it can lead to like really wild complications, and it's a fun opening. And it's been used by champions like Fischer and Kasparov regularly. It's been their main openings, and almost all high level grandmasters have at least used it at some point, because it's just a very strong opening. But we're actually not going to be seeing Najdorf's special opening here. We're going to see something quite different. So Glucksberg played d4 on move 1, and Najdorf actually goes to f5. So this is a really rare opening. I also play this once in a while too. It's called the Dutch defense, and it's definitely speculative because it opens up the diagonal towards the king. It also weakens this diagonal. So there's a number of different flaws to this move, and it doesn't really contribute to development either. So it's not really considered to be the most principled move. However, it does give, some benefits here. Like you gain some space in the center. You also give yourself a nice outpost. Whoops. Let's say the knight comes here, and then, maybe you'll use the e4 square sometime soon. So yeah, also Black is pretty flexible. They can still choose how they want to set up. They can do moves like g6 at some point. This is known as the Leningrad variation, where the bishop will come to g7 and aim across the center, help prepare castling. Or we'll see that actually Najdorf takes a different approach in this game. He goes for the Stonewall, which is, we'll see in a couple moves here. So White goes c4, and all these moves are pretty normal. Actually, it's even Knight c3 is actually not completely standard, because people actually like to fianchetto here and put the bishop on g2, and can opt for either knight development here. And we're going to see that this actually helps limit exactly what happens in the game today. So one of the benefits of playing this is that it really puts a damper on some of Black's kingside attacks. So we're gonna see just how deadly those can be in this game. So White starts on knight c3, e6, and now Black's really flexible. They can still play things like bishop b4. They can go b6, and it kind of would be a mixture between the Nimzo Indian and the Queen's Indian. Or they can kind of keep it true to the Dutch, and that's exactly what he does here. He plays d5. I don't think this is supposed to be the best version of the Stonewall here, because you'd prefer to do this if White's dark squared bishop's not going to be a very nice piece here. And if White plays something like bishop f4, they have a good grip of the dark squares, and obviously this square on e5 is very weak. One of the things Black is hoping to make up for the fact that they have these weak dark squares is to get this bishop to d6, where it's going to be a very powerful piece. Like the bishop on d7 is going to, or the bishop on c8, I should say, it might go to d7, but the light squared bishop is oftentimes the problem for Black, and they like to have this very strong bishop to make up for it. But if the bishop's not going to be able to take a kind of dominant role here, then usually White kind of is considered to be at least slightly better. However, White plays e3, and I think this is giving Black exactly what they're looking for. And these next few moves are pretty normal. So black gets the bishop that I was mentioning, and it's going to be a very strong piece influencing the center and pressuring the king side. So Glucksberg goes for knight e2. This is reasonable. The knight could be on a good square here on f4. It may even eventually find a way back to d3 and then into this nice square and just kind of plug everything up on the e5 square and lock up the dark squares. But with that said, another plan, which is pretty normal here, is to do something like b3 and then work up towards playing something like bishop a3 eventually. Maybe like a4 could be a move coming up, or to set this move up, something like that. And one thing that black should be a little bit careful of is that they don't necessarily want to allow white to take on d5 under good circumstances. Like let's say white were to play b3. I think maybe this wouldn't be the best timing for this move, because after taking on d5 here, we're going to see that there's a drawback of having this knight on d7. So normally, the bishop's on c8, it's not doing much, but at least it does x-ray this this pawn on f5 and keeps it defended. So in situations like this, black would prefer to be able to take like this and keep this nice pawn structure here, which keeps this knight from harassing this very useful bishop. But yeah, the issue here is that the pawn's hanging and it's just not defended. So yeah, with that being said, black would probably have to take back like this, but yeah, this isn't as ideal. White has moves like knight b5, which starts to cause some problems. So yeah, I think that's a nice thing to keep in mind in this kind of position. But unfortunately, after knight e2, even now, like black plays knight d7, it's just not as inconvenient. If white were to take, black can take back this way. Still, we don't want to take back like that because the pawn will hang. But yeah, like this, there's no knight b5 anymore. Still, black might play some like knight e4 and start to kind of gain some presence in the center and on the king side. So this knight on e2 is actually kind of now misplaced for this plan. Okay, so let's see what happens. So knight g5 got played, and yeah, this is just, it's such a provocative thing to do. It just puts this knight on an undefended square. It walks into kind of a classic type of tactic here, but white actually had this all kind of planned out, I think. The only issue is that Najdorf actually calculated this out better than his opponent here. So I think both of them saw the oncoming tactics here, but only black was able to evaluate them correctly. So he starts by playing bishop h2. And like I mentioned, the knight on g5 here is loose. And yeah, just in anyone's games, you should be thinking about just paying attention to loose pieces, things that are not defended, because they're the most common pieces to be used or taken advantage of in tactics. So black takes, and the thinking is that if white captures back, black will go knight g4, unleash this discovered attack on the knight. They've already damaged the king side, and this is definitely good for black. I mean, they could hardly ask for much more. They get like a free attack basically, and they win some material in the meantime. So definitely would be really good. So white actually saw this, and this is what I mean by I think they kind of, it's like they're out calculating each other here. But white played king h1, and no doubt Najdorf had planned for this. So he goes ahead and he plays knight g4 anyway. And yeah, it's an interesting move. So it does leave this hanging here, but for white to take it, it would be suicidal. So if they take queen h4 and adios to black, to white here, we're going to move the bishop back. Like let's say, okay, we'll say knight f8 just to be cooperative. So the mate here is going to be bishop g3 or bishop back anywhere basically. And after queen h2, it's over. So yeah, definitely not good. Okay, so after knight g4, white played f4. So I'm assuming they once again had a plan for this. And now this is really interesting because the bishop on h2, it's completely blocked out. There's basically no return. But the question is, can black mount a serious enough attack in the meantime to like justify trapping their own bishop here? And is white's king too weak? And we're going to see that the answer is yes, although it's not obvious how you have to go about making this happen. But the first step is definitely going to be kind of including more pieces into the attack, because you just can't get the job done with the knight and the bishop here. You need more pieces involved. So black plays queen e8. And the thinking is just to play queen h5, bring in their most powerful piece to the attack, create these chances for a discovered check, and various kind of mating patterns, bringing the queen up to h2. So white, once again, must have seen all this, played g3, and the plan was to put the king on g2 here, and they thought that after rook h1, everything is under control. They're going to pin the bishop, like black has no entry squares on it anywhere here, and they can only fit so many pieces on the h file here. So white thought that they must have thought that they had this under control. But here, Najdorf plays an extremely beautiful interference. And not every single prophylactic move has to be kind of defensive or passive in nature. You can also play offensive moves that prevent your opponent's plans. So white wants to play rook h1, black just simply stops it. He plays bishop g1, brilliant move. And this is the beginning of the end for white here, because there's absolutely no stopping queen h2 unless white wants to just start giving up material. I mean, maybe something like knight h3 is playable, but at the very least, black could take here with the bishop. They could also, I think taking with the bishop makes the most sense. Definitely white doesn't want to capture back. That's going to be even worse. But black's ahead by 2 pawns. They have a better king, and yeah, they're just in a winning position here. So in the game, white takes with the knight, queen h2, king f3, only move here, and now the big concern for white is the king, of course. It's on f3. It has no legal moves right now, so it's in a mating net, and black just needs to look for some useful way, some smart way to get to the king here. And white has things barely covered enough here. Black would love to get their knight to either of these knights to e5. It's very close to this mating net or mating pattern to finish white off, and unfortunately just can't make it work at this exact moment. So what he does is he plays e5 here. Absolutely brilliant. Moves this pawn to the most protected square basically on the whole board, and the thinking is of course that if white takes back, now white's going to lose a defender first, so black has enough pieces to start taking and bring a knight to e5. And also there's a secondary threat here of e4, which is very direct, very strong, going to blow open the white king. So that would be miserable. So white takes, black captures, sacrifices another minor piece here. He gets to take back, and now this king is heading up the board to f4, and yeah, unfortunately, it's just there's no defense at this point. White just has to hope that black misplays it somehow, and they get a second chance. But that doesn't happen. So knight g6, and here white has this key move with king f4 in response to knight e5. So black tries to plug that square. Pretty smart. So f4, great move. Blocking the square, setting up moves like knight e5, and also things like f takes g3 here with a discovered check. Just, relentless attack here. So white takes with the e-pawn. That was a reasonable choice considering the circumstances, but it fails, as we'll see. Also, g takes just loses immediately because of knight e5 checkmate. So that's not a good option. So white's got to choose between some really, really ugly moves, and eventually he decides just to take it. So now black finds a really nice a nice way to either kind of win a lot of material or force white into a mate. So he plays bishop g4 here. Excellent move. Skewering the king and queen, and after king e3, black's going to take. They have moves like rook a to e8, building up a tremendous attack. Also, queen takes g3 is in the air, and it's just miserable for white. They're going to be down material. Their king is going to be under extreme pressure. So they went with the alternative, thinking maybe that it's just the best that they can do. But they most likely miss it. There's mate in 2 here. So you guys could stop and try to find it if you want. You could have also maybe paused it a little earlier to set it up. But yeah, here we have knight e5. just not allowing the king any retreat squares. So white took, and then, you know, it's kind of fitting actually in the Stonewall that a pawn would do the finishing touches here with all those signature like pawn setups earlier with the on the light squares. And yeah, we black gets to play pawn to h5 on a light square to just finish off the white king. So out of all the Immortal Stonewall games, this seems like the most fitting way to finish. But an awesome game from Najdorf, not featuring his signature opening, but he manages to do a fantastic job nonetheless. Plays some really, really amazing sacrificial ideas here to just lure out the king as much as he could. So awesome game. I hope you guys liked it. And if you have any questions, just let me know in the comments and I'll try to respond. Try to like and share this video, and I'll see you next time.